Hello, this is Keith Cooks. I'm Keith, and today I'm going to show you how to make a classic British Italian dish, lasagna. I say British Italian, it's more British than Italian. I don't think an Italian would recognise what we think of as lasagna as being any such thing. However, it's comfort food, it's quite easy, it's delicious, so let's go. So you probably know lasagna is layers of a tomatoey meaty sauce and bechamel sauce, white sauce, and sheets of lasagna pasta, and all topped off with a good whack of cheese, and it's delicious. So ingredients for the meat sauce: I've got half a kilo of minced beef, I've got a big can of tomatoes, that's about 500 grams of actual tomatoes, some tomato puree, I'll probably only use about half of this, 250 mils of beef stock just made up from a cube, a medium onion, a teaspoon of ground black pepper, and 2 teaspoons of basil. So first thing to do is chop the onion up. Now, I sometimes use a little bit of bacon, smoked bacon in this as well, but I'm not today because I haven't got any. So just chop the onions into little bits like that, and then we'll heat some vegetable oil in a pan and just cook them for a bit until they go soft and translucent. Meanwhile, I'm just going to chop the tomatoes. You can actually get them pre-chopped if you like, saves you a bit of time. Then we pop the tomato and all the juice into a pan and add the basil and the ground black pepper, and we'll bring it to the boil and then simmer it. So we pop a bit more oil in the pan, let that warm up, and then we'll add the beef. And you want to break it up so that it gets browned all over. Okay, the tomato has come to the boil, so I've turned that down a little bit, and the beef is pretty much browned. So I'll pop that into the pan with the tomatoes, stir it all around, and now we can add the beef stock and some of the tomato puree, and then just let that bubble away for about half an hour, possibly a bit longer. Now, to make the white sauce, we're going to use basically a bechamel sauce, but there'll be cheese added, so that makes it a cheese sauce basically. So we've got 250 mils of milk, we've got a bit of onion, that will be the equivalent of a small onion or even less, a teaspoon of mustard, some flour, a knob of butter, a bay leaf, 5 cloves, and half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and also 100 grams of cheese, which will be grated. Half of that will go in the sauce, and we'll keep back the rest to put on the top. So I'm just going to chop the onion into slices, and then what we're going to do is infuse the onion into the milk. This will give the milk nice oniony flavour, of course, and also the bay leaf and the cloves, and they need to just sit for about half an hour. Now, just a note about the cheese, because this is a pseudo-Italian dish, many recipes suggest automatically by default mozzarella or parmesan. I happen to think mozzarella, okay, it's a great melty cheese, but it doesn't taste of anything. Parmesan is a rubbish melty cheese, but it tastes fantastic. So anyway, as I'm doing a British mashup of lasagna, I have no hesitation in using strong, mature British cheddar, and if it survives me nibbling at it. So we melt the butter in a saucepan on medium heat. Make sure it doesn't get too hot. And let's have a taste of our meat sauce, which looks like it might be ready. Yeah, that's fabulous. It's actually a bit too runny, I think, so I'm just going to increase the heat and reduce the amount of liquid somewhat. Well, the butter was all melted, so I've sifted in some flour. You want about the same quantity of flour as you had butter, and just stir it in till it's all, well, dissolved. dissipated, and hopefully try not to get any lumps. If you do get lumps, squash them out or just keep stirring. Okay, now we want to strain the milk infusion into this. We don't want the actual solid bits of onion and cloves and bay leaf, we just want the flavoured milk. And you might think this is a crazy technique, but it does actually work. You will be able to detect all these flavours. And just let that warm up and keep stirring, and it will thicken after a minute or two. Okay, you see that's thickened, so we'll put in the nutmeg, stir that in, a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, stir that in too, and half of the cheese. Notice I don't actually add salt because the cheese is probably pretty salty, but we'll taste it when it's melted and just check for that. And the meat sauce is bubbling away, and I think we can say that's ready. So just take them both off the heat, let them cool down a bit, and then we'll start to assemble the lasagna. Just a note on this meat sauce, it actually improves if you can manage to leave it a day, but I don't have time, I've got to use it now. Now we're ready to assemble the lasagna, and at this point you need to get yourself an oven-proof dish and calculate how many sheets of pasta you'll need. You will need 3 layers, and you can see, because this is slightly odd shape, I'm going to need like 2.5 sheets for each layer. So that's 2.5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and a half. And if I try to snap it while it's dry, that's what happens. So we won't do that. I'm going to pre-soak these for about 5 minutes, and then I'll be able to cut them, because I want the layers of pasta to fit the dish exactly. This happens to be pre-cooked pasta, so I don't need to do anything else. If yours isn't, you'll need to do what it tells you on the instructions. Pour it into the dish and place the pasta sheets in one at a time, so that, you know, we don't want them to stick together really. Okay, so these have lost their brittleness and they're a little bit floppy, but not too much. So I'll take them out and just dry them off on a piece of kitchen paper, and then I'll trim off some corners and trim some strips. Right, so I've got the oven preheating to 200 degrees Celsius, and I've drained the dish and dried it and given it a quick rub inside and on the bottom with butter. And now we start to build our wonderful lasagna. So it's 1 layer of meat sauce in the bottom, and then 1 layer of pasta. So I take one of those and I'll just cut the corner off it and pop it in there. Ooh, look at that. And you'll have lots of bits left over to fill in any holes with. But it is important, I think, to get the pasta sheets fitting as tightly to the dish as possible, and then your layers will stay separate. Okay, more meat sauce and some of the white sauce. And I think I haven't made enough for this white sauce really, so in the written recipe I think I'll give double the quantities. It will still be fantastic though. Right, another layer of pasta on top of that, and the rest of the meat sauce. Actually, I probably have too much of this, or you know, I should have a taller dish. Ho hum, ain't nobody perfect, especially me. And the final layer of pasta, and then the rest of the white sauce. So spread the white sauce out with a knife to get a nice smooth surface, and then sprinkle the cheese evenly all over it, and then slam it in the oven for 30 minutes. So here's our lasagna fresh out the oven, and looking and smelling terrific. But the bad news is you'll have to wait. It needs to set, it needs to cool down, and the sauce is to set a little bit for about 20 to 30 minutes. Sorry about that. I really am, because I'm starving. Okay, here it is at last. Our wonderful lasagna. Oh yeah, that's delicious. Make it.